Hey everybody, a few weeks ago, Brenton and I did a office hours on proposal preview. If you're not using it in DealHub or you think you're not maximizing it, this video is a must see. We walk through what it is, how to use it. We talk about how the data flows from different parts of the system. I've even got a diagram I walk through. We show you some use cases, some cool examples, and then also how you can restrict access. So maybe you got one for finance, one for sales, and one for your RevOps team. When this feature came out, it made us much faster admins, and it made us, heroes to the teams we support. So here we go.
Okay. So what is the proposal summary template? Just thought we'd start out there, right? Because it is not something that's been around forever. In fact, I'm not as accustomed to using it. And so when I see it being used, it's a good reminder of just like the power that it has. And we'll talk about, all the reasons to use it and then some of the reasons you can't use it. But here it is, right? So in the sales mode, you have your deal room template, you have a document template, and then you have this proposal summary template. This is Brenton's demo environment. So you set up a couple that you can select from. And even within those, they're variable, like you can change them. But what this does is it shows up after you go through all your playbook questions, after you have your product summary, it shows up down here. And I won't steal too much of Brenton's thunder, but that's the proposal preview. And so what does that give you? And so I thought the best way to illustrate what that does is to share a diagram. So this is a diagram that I kind of hijacked that I created a long time ago. And it's all about, how does information flow just from front to back in DealHub, right? Like obviously the first place you're starting is you're trying to extract from the seller what's in their mind, like what products do they need to sell, what term is it, and so forth. But the end result is what you send to your customer, be it a deal room, a PDF, both, right? And what the system does in between that is it takes all your responses to the deal, to the playbook. What product did he select? What's the quantity? What's the term? And it assigns those to the line items as it assigns them. It puts the term and the start date and so forth. It also does a bunch of calculations, right? So it's calculating the overall total for the deal. It might be calculating some document parameters that you have. Maybe it's specific, like not on the line item level, but maybe there's 4 line items that are hardware and equipment, and you want to see the summary of that. Well, those are calculated in document parameters. And if you're familiar with DealHub's backend, that's kind of like you're almost as far over to the right as you can be in the system here, because these happen right before the PDF and the deal room shows. It's like back in the day when you're doing a lot of testing to see what the hardware and equipment fee was that was going to land on the PDF, you have to generate the PDF and you open it up, you look at it. Or I used to put sections in the deal room because the deal room generates faster. And so you could see all your, like, I don't know, what's my billing address and what's my hardware and equipment fee. You could see it all real fast, but you're bouncing back and forth, right? So what the proposal summary template does is it kind of gives you, I think, Brenton, you put it best, like a window into the data before it lands here. So like,
Yes.
while you're in your quoting mode, you get a window into it and it kind of gives you that feedback loop.
Yes. And actually, Ryan, it not only gives you a window into what's going to land on the proposal or what's going to the end customer, but it also is giving you a window for the data points that are going to write back to your CRM, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So we could add another box below PDF and deal room for CRM because
Yes.
things like document parameters are commonly used to help us calculate percentage of the deal or revenue that it can be allocated to hardware versus services versus other things. That's information that would never land in the PDF. That's only important internally.
Right.
And so back end equations, such as we're highlighting here in document parameters or other spots, are where that calculation occurs. And the proposal summary template allows for you to preview it before you have to sync that proposal to the CRM and then actually see what landed there. Well, if you can do it in the proposal summary, then you can see all those final results in real time before it actually arrives at the final location.
Oh, that's a great addition. I think we'll have to get Scott to make this diagram look better.
That's
But
right.
I'm glad that it wasn't like a PDF, because you added that. That's a ton of value that the proposal summary adds right there.
Yes. Yeah. Um, so let's see. Like we could talk through a little bit of when to use it. And maybe as we do that, let me pull up the demo itself of,
I think that's
showing
a good
off.
idea.
Let me get my screen set up again.
Yeah. So as you're kind of pulling that up, you talked about confirming values that will sync to the CRM. Another big use case is troubleshooting. Like, so we'll look at it like you can present the information for different people, right? So you have a salesperson, you can have a view for them. You have the admin, they can have a view for them. Um, what's an example of that margin? So
Sure.
oftentimes we work with customers, and on the back end in the product catalog, we know what their cost is and we know what the markup is, but they don't really want the salesperson to see that actively. So
Yes.
we might have a separate uh, preview that's showing margin that we use for troubleshooting purposes or for evaluation by a separate team, finance team, and so forth. So
Absolutely.
Brenton, I'll let you take it from there.
Absolutely. And yeah, so like that's a great point. So for troubleshooting purposes exclusively, a proposal summary template can be really raw, really simple, right? We could simply, in this case, am purely uh, mirroring or re-exposing an opportunity type selection, right? Because maybe that's driving playbook questions or how certain items like margin are calculated, and maybe that's how commissions are based on, right? Like there could be so many things that are helpful to understand at time of quoting. Um, and so, it doesn't have to be pretty. And furthermore, with proposal summary templates, you can define when they are visible and who they are visible to, just like with every playbook element, right? So we can actually make this so that if a sales rep was in a proposal, they are none the wiser. They don't even know this functionality exists. However, if a deal desk, if a manager, if the DealHub admin logs in, then all of a sudden all this rich data can be exposed for them right down in the summary
Yeah.
templates. And so the way I've built this example, like I've just included a large number of products just as so we have some data to work from. But there are different ways that we could organize those templates. One option would be like a progress bar approach.
And we have to give some credit to Jonathan Boyd on our team for
Yes.
building this out.
Yes.
The progress bar, he's doing some trickery on the back end, I think, with CSS and so forth to bring all the data into like a super visual
That's
way
right.
to see it. And that was
Yes,
cool. I
100%.
see you actually pulled it out. I forgot that you can do that. So you can see it as you're interacting with everything else.
Yeah, you can always have it front and center as you're reviewing stuff, which is even more helpful for troubleshooting, right? You're
Yeah.
trying to figure out one little thing and you need multiple areas to be visible on the screen at the same time. Um, so yeah, this is a great example and it's dynamic too, right? We can do things like increase server counts or whatever those selections are that are going to drive your products, and our values, our percentages that we're syncing back to the CRM, they're updating real time, so you can get that live pulse of what's going on with the proposal. I'd say this presentation is really focused on like rev ops and sales, right? understanding the core metrics of the deal, like the quote to cash numbers that you're going to need to reference. Um, and it
I,
doesn't have to be broken down in details, right? Maybe things like ARR setup fees, maybe that's too much, or you want just a different presentation. Um, oops.
when as you're kind of going through that,
Yeah.
just talking about DealHub in general, yeah, it looks like maybe need a page refresh.
I'm
Um,
just gonna go on.
I've really started to think about it more of as a CPQ platform, because everything that we're showing today is completely custom. Now,
Yes.
we've already figured it out, right? So these proposal preview summary templates, um, we have we use HTML, we have all the document parameters, and that's something that, if you're trying to figure it out from whole cloth, it takes a long time to do. But you know, I think we'll probably talk about it at the end here. It's something that we kind of want to be able to share with the community at large, right? Because it's one thing to get the values down there, right? And you have the right data in front of your users so that they can action. But like, this is how you show off, right? Like in RevOps, this is how you show off. And there's no template in the system. Like everything you do in DealHub, you start with a blank slate. Every
Mhm.
question you see here, every product, you start with a blank slate. Now we have all the best practices figured out, and we're happy to help people out with that. But yeah, sitting there and fiddling with the HTML and CSS until you get it to look like this, it can take hours,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. You can sink a lot of time, or yeah, you could um, take some of that knowledge that we've already cut our teeth on, and we're happy to share it for sure. And even the Deal Hub team is happy to share as well, right? It's not just us, right? Here is an example of a preview that Deal Hub has presented in previous webinars. Just presenting it in a nice, clean table structure, allowing for key metrics. Again, it's the live pulse of this proposal. So if you were to change the playbook or anything else, you're going to see those updates change. For example, let me just add a quick discount. Right now we can
Yeah.
understand very quickly, oh, there's this much discount being applied. Like maybe this is the place you look to first instead of having to parse to part
There's a
find those
lot
details
to,
in the product summary.
right. There's a lot to go through. And I mean, we're even looking at a very simple system. A lot of companies will do ramp deals where they're using the multi-system functionality. And
Yes,
so as a rep to like kind of try to kind of go through each one of the systems and try to internalize what's going on, or even a finance person, right?
that's right.
This is where you distill it down, right? This is your at a glance. This is what's important to our business. And you know, I I want to kind of relate it back to the diagram though, right? Like the intent here is you've got that window into the further downstream. So you don't have to wonder, oh, is my quote going to show up with a 36-month term? And am I hitting my 2496 MRR target, right? You see it right
Mhm.
here, so you can catch it. You can make your adjustments before you go through the whole process of producing the PDF and so forth.
That's right. That's right. Let me just show one more stylized example, if you will.
Yes.
Again, we have to give props to Jonathan on our team because he's really forged the path on how this could be set up. But why not make your proposal summary interactive, right? There's always the need to provide additional resources, additional something to the quoters, or very commonly. Well, why not make it so that they're interactive buttons? I haven't set up any active links in this demo, but you can see very quickly, well, what if there's some sort of internal cheat sheet that you host on Atlassian or Notion or your internal intranet, right? Being able to just link that right here from the point in time where the rep is creating the proposal will save time overall, right? They won't have to go hunt for it. They know that they can always look at the latest version because it's available to them at time of quoting. This could spawn off email supports, bring a user to forums, look at different training elements. Um, and this could all be customized and tailored to your business needs, not only in the information shown, not only in the interactive elements, but all the way down to the style, right? We can make this look like your brand and really just make it feel like an integrated piece of the entire experience.
Yeah.
And furthermore, it can layer, right? You can dynamically have things show or hide based on all of a sudden a new product line is being added. Or because I'm an admin to DealHub, maybe I always want to be able to see the troubleshooting details, right? So you can just layer on different components. Who's logged into the proposal can control who sees it, making it so that there's never too much data at one given time.
How did you do that? How did you layer it like that?
Absolutely. So
Showing off during the demo. Let's see. Let's see how
the
you
way
work.
that I built this proposal template was I built all my samples as different widgets, if you will, right?
Yes,
And every
instead of
widget,
separate. Yes.
every widget's using presentation rules that I'm driving on the playbook, but it doesn't have to be this complex. It could have just been from the top selection of which template do you want to show.
Right.
And by then adding the ability to say, well, anytime troubleshooting's included, well, let's just layer that right on top of whatever proposal template is being presented. And the great thing is, truly as a troubleshooting example, let me just do a live example.
This is risky.
And um, with DealHub, it gives you categorized answers, right? So do you need to quickly visualize a detail that comes from the playbook because maybe you're pulling it in from the CRM? Do you need to visualize a field that you're pushing to the CRM? Well, you can, if you know what you're looking for, you can quickly go and say, well, I know I want to look at setup fees, live example setup fee. But this, of course, could be, right, like as we talked about before, what's the allocation of hardware resources or budget or revenue? I'm just going to save this. And because I'm working with a draft proposal, I'm not in a version that's active. All I need to do is change one element in the playbook, and you're going to see that detail update in real time. So you don't even have to go and, fully push this out yet in order to start troubleshooting in real time if you're working in a draft mode of a version.
I didn't know that. So it treats it like an output document.
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Just whatever action you would take that would refresh the product summary section,
Yes.
then the proposal summary will also refresh.
This is awesome. Can you switch back to the edit template page?
Yes.
So, all right, we covered all the awesome stuff. And then there are things you can't do that you'd probably want to do, right? I mean, in the edit template section, you see that the only option you have at the top right is add text section.
That's right.
So like, in an output document, you can add, I mean, the big one is a pricing table, and you don't have that option here. That would be like the perfect piece to the puzzle to be able to see that. But that's one of those things that's at the end of the diagram in the PDF that you don't have a window into. So you're kind of like, and sometimes you have to kind of try to capture some of that detail in or earlier stages, right?
Yes.
And then I think probably worth talking about, like on one of these that's highly stylized, can you hit the source diagram, a source button on it? Everything in DealHub, we find that there's windows into like the base code almost, like, so you can insert CSS, you can insert HTML. Is it officially supported? I'm not sure, right? So we have this concept of like the more you customize things, right?
Mm-hmm.
The I think fragile is the right word, right? You
It
just
is.
have
Yep.
to be aware that a platform level change could inadvertently break it at some point, right?
That's right. That's right.
And we've been a part of fixing situations where that's happened. We've been a part of seeing it happen to things that we've built, definitely,
That's right.
right?
Yes. And that's, you can start to get a preview of elements that might be fragile here in the proposal summary document. That is more prevalent in the output documents because, without getting overly technical, but I'll give a small window into it. You're taking stylized content from the playbook. You have to pass it along to the engine, let's call it, that generates the PDF or Word document. And then that has to pass it along to the actual solution used to create the PDF itself. So it goes from playbook to output document processor to the actual end result. And
Yes.
through those hops, if the way that HTML is handled is different between any of them, then the final output looks different, right? And that's where a bit of, some fragile configurations can be found.
Right, right. And so it's always like this is the last mile here, right? Like this is when your system's perfectly running. You're not trying to do any troubleshooting, like those troubleshooting templates. Actually, do you mind, since you're already sharing, could you pull up the Notion with the that sample image we had?
Yep.
Yes. So this is an example of a very simple proposal summary preview. Gosh, I use it like every second with this particular implementation. So
Hmm.
we're doing a really complex renewal implementation where basically they have over time, lots of people accumulate this as SaaS companies, contracts for different products they're ending in different dates. Well,
Hmm.
now there's a huge effort to align everything to a singular end date, right? So what that means is you've got to start at the final date and you have to like count anniversaries back for each line item. It's going to be awesome because now their customers, next time when they go to renew them, it'll be totally aligned. But making sure that all the dates and the calculations are happening right, I've needed this window. So seeing the splits per year one, what's it going to cost? Year two, year three, year four. If there's
Hmm.
nothing in year four, I need to see that at $0. So like I can real time, I'm making changes in the playbook, and I'm making changes calculations on the products, and um, I don't have to refresh and produce a PDF every time. I just look at that, and you can see like the code above. It's very simple, right? I mean, you're pulling in some proposal attributes, you're pulling in some document parameters. It's not stylized, but it's highly functional. Now, like
Right.
maybe if we decided this was super functional for the users and we're on the other end of it, we're just trying to improve their experience, that's when we start to stylize it. That's when we add the buttons to the training and so forth.
Yep.
So
That's right. That's right. And just another use case that I used today for the proposal summary template and troubleshooting. A customer was observing that their PDFs weren't showing a billing address detail. And in their environment, they have addresses associated with the company, but they have two addresses always, right? There's the company address and there's the company billing address. And so the assumption was, hey, they have a company address, so of course that should just push along. But the reality of it all is that, well, it's the company billing address that needs to be filled out because that's what shows up in the proposals. It just so happened that we already had a proposal summary template set up that clearly just documented for this proposal, here's the company bill, standard address, here's their billing address. And it took just a minute to say, oh, well, that's blank because the billing address details are empty, right? Um, so, building you come across these types of issues and your proposal summary template, its use cases are going to build based on your organization's needs. And if you do build a little repository of, uh, you know, troubleshooting previews, if you will, it does save you down the road as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you mind if I take over sharing to
Not
show
at
just a
all.
couple quick things?
Yeah.
I think one thing that we kind of talked about, kind of showing everybody is, and I'm showing this in a sense to say, don't get frustrated, right? Like, you may know HTML, you may know CSS. With ChatGPT, we all know it right now, right? But there's limitations in DealHub. It doesn't accept all of that, and so we I mean, this is just one aspect of we have a whole internal knowledge base where we track what works, what doesn't, right? And so we have done a lot of work, and actually Jonathan on the team, I think, did a lot of this to
Yes.
figure out, okay, how do we get this beautiful table to work in DealHub, not only just in HTML, how do we get buttons to work and so forth. We have to document it, right? It's complicated. So if you're frustrated, that's just a reason to reach out and just hit us up, right? Like, I'm happy to share information like this. This is just an example of one page that we use to share with our own team and make sure that we're not like reinventing the wheel every time. If somebody wants red text, nobody on our team should have to go figure out how to do that, right? It's been done.
That's right.
um, so I think that's that. I saw that we had a note to talk about one more potential gotcha that just people should be aware of on
Hmm.
the proposal summary template. What was
Yeah.
it,
So,
Brenton? Yeah.
yeah, the potential gotcha, especially if you're using proposal summaries for troubleshooting. Just always be mindful that if you have multiple templates, DealHub is always going to revert back to the default template option when you actually submit that proposal. So what does this mean? If you are, like you see right now, we have total is our default one and SAS template is our secondary template, right?
Yes.
Let's say we choose SAS template and we're using that troubleshooting feature because we're finding a discrepancy. If we go and submit the proposal with that one selected, what's going to happen is the second it's submitted, DealHub just kind of discards your template selection and it will revert back to the original one. Not
Mm.
the end of the world necessarily, because um, you can always duplicate a proposal and then get back to where you were. But if you were counting that data was still
Yes.
visual, that's just something to be cautious of. You could see this as
And
a
it's
pause.
submitted, so you can't adjust it either.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Once it's submitted, everything in this view gets locked down.
Yes.
Um, you could see this as a positive, right? Once it's submitted, you want to ensure that all troubleshooting data kind of goes away because now it is, the details that were presented to a customer, for example, or that's the view that somebody else on the team is going to see. And if you hadn't used role-based permissions for viewing that data or something like that, like now the environment's kind of clean. But from like a troubleshooting perspective, that could be a frustration point. Um, so it's just something to be mindful of as we've experienced it. We've seen that happen.
That's one of those examples of, if we don't have an Ocean article for it, we're going to make it right after this, because that's like kind of our mantra. We're not always the best at adhering to it, but like if you're having a problem, go to our internal knowledge base and see, because we bump into every nuance, right?
That's right.
And yeah, yeah.
That's right. So
Cool.
hopefully
Do
this
we?
has been helpful for everyone to be able to just even understand how powerful the summary templates can be. And, maybe this will entice somebody to, go take a look if you haven't already and, start using them or enhance them for a use case that we talked about today.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, do we have anything else to cover? I think we hit on all the main points.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. If, we're watching always for new features and functions. I know DealHub is undergoing a refresh. So just this week, we started seeing some refreshed UI the new logo shows up in DealHub and on the login screens, right?
Yep.
So we're excited to see, typically once the UI is refreshed, we get some new features as well. So I'm anxious and waiting for that next set of releases that the DealHub team will be bringing to the solution.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I guess we wrap it there.
That sounds good. All
Thanks
right.
for doing the demo. Thanks for putting
No,
everything together.
my pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
All right. See everybody later. Bye.
Bye now.